This is a story about a knight that arrived with fire and left in a disgraceful retreat. It's about men and women in the Borno darkness who held the line, and about an enemy that is learning the hard way that their time is up. If you're here for the real, unfiltered account of what happened in the bush and not the polished headlines, you are in the right place. If you appreciate detailed, on-the-ground reporting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories coming. The sun over northern Borno has a deceptive way of setting. It paints the horizon in hues of orange and gold, casting a fleeting peace over the ancient towns of Gajiram, Gajigana, and the more remote outpost of Mayanti. For the casual observer, it might look like any other evening. But for the locals and the troops stationed there, the dusk is a time of heightened alert. It's the hour when the veil between safety and danger grows thin. Late on the night of February 28, 2026, that veil was ripped apart. Our story begins in the most vulnerable of the three locations, the forward operating base in Mayanti. Nested within the Bama local government area, this is not a bustling city. It's a strategic bulwark against the chaos that lurks in the fringes of the Sambisa forest. By 11 p.m., the silence that had settled over the base was abruptly shattered. Imagine the scene, the stillness of the night broken not by the usual sounds of crickets or the distant hum of a generator, but by the unmistakable roar of heavy gun trucks. A large contingent of ISWAP fighters emerged from the shadows, their intent clear. They came with heavy weapons, PKT automatic anti-aircraft guns designed to tear through armored vehicles, rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs meant to level bunkers, and the chilling hum of an armed drone overhead. They wanted to overwhelm the base before reinforcements could even think of moving. But the gallant troops, as the official report would later describe them, did something remarkable. They held firm. Picture a soldier in that trench, the air thick with cordite, the ground shaking from impacts, yet knowing that to step back is to hand over Nigerian soil to men who have nothing to offer but death. They fought through the initial onslaught, their training kicking in even as the command structure worked frantically to mobilize support. Reinforcements had to fight their way through. The terrorists, cunning in their desperation, had lined the approach routes with ambush parties and improvised explosive devices, IEDs. Every mile the relief column advanced was a battle in itself. It was a night of pure, unadulterated tension. When the dust finally cleared and the terrorists were forced into a disorderly retreat, the true cost was counted. On the ground lay the bodies of 5 terrorists, but the victory came at a heartbreaking price. Before we move to Gajiram, I have to ask you, in an age of drones and satellite surveillance, how do we still find ourselves mourning the loss of an officer in hand-to-hand combat? What does this tell us about the nature of this war? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If Mayanti was a midnight brawl, the attack on Gajiram, which came just hours later at about 1:15 a.m. on March 1st, was a technical spectacle. The terrorists were clearly trying to keep the military off balance, hitting one base and immediately pivoting to another. At Gajiram, they came equipped for a modern war, PKT guns, RPGs, and that ominous new tool in the insurgent arsenal, an armed drone. The troops at Gajiram, however, had an ace in the hole, the Nigerian Air Force. The coordinated response was swift. As the ground troops engaged the enemy, fixing them in position, the air assets moved in. The terrorists, who moments before believed they had the upper hand with their drone, found themselves on the run.
In their frantic flight, they abandoned items that tell a desperate story. 3 terrorist bodies were left along the withdrawal route. But more telling was the equipment scattered in the sand. 4 AK-47 rifles, 5 anti-tank bombs, 3 locally fabricated mortar bombs, and that drone, an armed drone, now in the hands of the military. Alongside this high-tech gear lay relics of a darker, older warfare, barbed wire cutters, and, chillingly, poisoned arrows. It paints a picture of an enemy scraping the bottom of the barrel, mixing medieval weaponry with 21st century surveillance tech. They are adapting, but so are our troops. One wounded soldier was quickly airlifted by a Nigerian Army aviation helicopter, a testament to the improved medical response time that saves lives on a regular basis. And what of Gajigana? There, the attack was thwarted so effectively that the terrorists barely made a dent. The troops maintained full control, a silent rebuke to anyone who thought these forward bases were soft targets. While the world's attention was on the firefights at the FOBs, the men of Sector 2 were playing a different, equally vital game. They were choking the snake. In Kayawa village, troops engaged terrorist elements, forcing them to abandon their lifelines: a tricycle, 3 motorcycles, and 5 bicycles. It doesn't sound like much, does it? But in the vastness of the Northeast, those motorcycles are the insurgents' pickup trucks, their ambulances, their taxis. In a move that highlights the intelligence aspect of this war, troops arrested 2 confessed ISWAP logistics suppliers. They didn't just find guns, they found drugs and medical consumables. Think about that. These terrorists aren't just fighters, they are a parasitic ecosystem. They need medicine when they are wounded, they need supplies to survive. By dismantling these logistics chains, arresting the men who bring them Panadol and bandages, the military is slowly bleeding them dry.
Further south, near Bulturam Corner and Dadingale in Gujbai Algier, an ambush by troops led to the neutralization of 2 more terrorists and the recovery of 2 AK-47 rifles and magazines. These are the small victories that don't always make the front page, but they are the ones that cumulatively grind the insurgency into dust. When Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the media information officer, released the list of recoveries, it read like an inventory of a warlord's garage sale. From Mayanti, the haul was intimidating: 3 PKT automatic anti-aircraft guns, the kind of firepower that can shred a pickup truck, 2 RPG-7 tubes, 4 AK-47s, 2 FN rifles, 3 RPG bombs, and a staggering quantity of 7.62mm ammunition. Blood trails leading away from the scene suggested the 5 bodies left behind were just a fraction of their actual casualties. From Gajiram, the haul was bizarre in its variety: 6 fully loaded 7.62mm NATO magazines, specialized ammunition, and those poisoned arrows. Here is another question for you. When you see an enemy using poisoned arrows alongside anti-tank bombs, do you see strength or weakness? Does it signal a sophisticated force or one desperately trying to weaponize anything they can find? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button to stay updated on this developing story. To truly understand this story, you have to leave the forward operating bases and walk into the communities. For the people of Gajiram and Gajigana, morning came with the smell of gunpowder and the sound of helicopters, but it also came with relief. In the local markets, the conversations are hushed but hopeful. We heard the firing, one elder might tell you, his eyes scanning the horizon as if looking for ghosts. It was heavy, but when we saw the sun rise and the flag still flying, we knew they had failed again.
These communities live in a state of hyper-vigilance. They are the eyes and ears of the military. They are the ones who notice a strange face, an unfamiliar vehicle. The attacks were terrifying, yes, but the fact that the troops not only repelled them but retained control of the bases sends a powerful message to the locals: we are not leaving you. There is, however, a quiet grief. The announcement that an officer paid the supreme price hangs over the victory like a shadow. In some home far from Borno, a family is receiving visitors. A child is asking where daddy is. This is the cost we seldom calculate when we read these reports. We celebrate the weapons recovered, the terrorists neutralized, but we must also honor the empty chair at the dinner table. Why did ISWAP launch these simultaneous coordinated attacks? The military's analysis is spot on: desperation. For months, Operation HADIN KAI has been squeezing their enclaves. They have been hitting logistics corridors, cutting off supplies, and decapitating leadership structures. When you corner a wild animal, it becomes most dangerous. It lashes out with everything it has. That is exactly what we saw on the night of February 28 and March 1. These attacks were meant to be a statement. They wanted to prove they could still strike at will. Instead, they proved the opposite. They lost men, they lost a drone, a huge psychological and tactical blow, and they lost enough ammunition to supply a small militia. They fled, leaving their dead and their wounded. That is not the mark of a force in control. It is the mark of a force in flight. The recovery of an armed drone is particularly significant. It shows that the threat is evolving, that the terrorists are seeking new ways to bypass our defenses. But it also shows that our troops are evolving faster. They didn't panic when they saw a drone. They called in air support and held their ground. So, what do we take from this? 1. The military cannot be everywhere at once.
The public must understand that security is a partnership. If you see something, say something. 2. These men and women are fighting in brutal conditions. They are away from their families, facing an enemy that plays by no rules. They need our moral support, and they need the government to ensure they have the best equipment money can buy. 3. While this was a decisive win, the war isn't over. The fact that ISWAP can still muster this level of force means they are still a threat. We must maintain the pressure until their capacity is completely degraded. As we conclude this narrative, I want you to remember the image of those troops in Mayanti. Remember the sound of the guns, the chaos of the ambush, and the quiet bravery it takes to fight through it. Remember the officer who won't be coming home. And remember that the fight for peace is not just won on the battlefield. It is won in the minds of the people. It is when communities refuse to be cowed, when they cooperate with security forces, and when we as citizens remain aware and supportive. If this story moved you, if you believe in the importance of telling these stories with the depth and respect they deserve, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Share this story so that more people know about the sacrifices being made in our names. The terrain is tough, the enemy is vicious, but with resilience and unity, peace will prevail.